Welcome to MGoRadio 11.12. I'm on my phone because I forgot my headset at home. Thanksgiving hijinks, everybody. How you doing, Seth?
I'm ready for the end of the season as well. It's
Yeah.
we throw all these basketball games on top of the end
Oh
of the
my God.
football season, and I think we killed Alex. He he messaged me at 5:45 a.m. being like, "I don't think I'm gonna make MGoRadio."
Okay. Well, we're here and we are previewing the Ohio State Buckeyes, but because I'm on my phone, I can't do the sponsors list, but somebody can.
Yes, well, we would like to thank the Underground Printing for starting this and making it all possible. Stop by and pick up some gear. Check them out at ugpmichiganapparel.com or check out our selection of shirts on the mgoblogstore.com. Our associate sponsors are Peak Wealth Management, Matt Demarest, Realtor and Lender, Ann Arbor Elder Law, Michigan Lograd, Human Element, Sharon's Heating and Air Conditioning, the Sklar Brothers, Wineward Organics, Community Pest Solutions, Radicate Oral Surgery, Long Road Distillers, and Signal Wire, where we are recording this.
All right, let's get into it. Ohio State, 11-0, number one team in the country. Very good team, but they do have a slight ain't played nobody problem. Michigan may not qualify as anybody this year, but I do think, just kind of looking at the games that they've played, like the best team that they have played in the last 2 months is Illinois.
I mean, there's an argument that, Penn State, because they got Penn State at the absolute bottom, right?
Well, yeah, they also got the Grunk, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't get Dreller.
Yeah. So, and Penn State's been playing a little bit better now, but I think the Washington win is probably their most impressive. They went to Washington. Washington is a lot better than road Washington.
So that's the game Alex charted for FFFF, because there's really nothing else to chart unless you want to go back to the season opener and see what Texas did. And Texas was able to hold them down defensively. They only had 200 yards offense in that. But since then, it's been sort of the steady drumbeat, and Julian Sands completing nearly 80% of his passes. Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, you know the deal. The thing about this game is that Tate has missed the last 3 weeks. And Smith was held out last week, only played 22 snaps against UCLA, had a notable limp. And the way that the Ohio State people are talking about them, it feels like it's going to be pretty touch and go for those two guys to play.
Well, they have the excuse lined up. They still have some pretty good receivers. And
I mean, that's an interesting thing, though, because Brandon Inniss is a top 50 player. He's mostly been used as an underneath guy. He's a good option. But the other guy they played against Rutgers a lot was basically their version of Peyton O'Leary. So there's names like Davis Adolph, so he really should not stand next to Savion Hyder at any point. But
wait, the NIL era has brought some names, yeah.
No, that's not. We're not doing that one. We will not be doing that one.
I mean, Mylan Graham is another one of those top guys. He's like a sophomore who's, in his...
Yeah, but there's a big difference between Jeremiah Smith and not Jeremiah Smith, right? Doesn't matter what that guy's ranking is. And some of these guys come through and they're Julian Fleming, who was a fine college receiver, but, not going to go in the top 5 picks of the NFL draft. So I think it was interesting that they played their version of Peyton O'Leary over those guys against Rutgers. So maybe those guys are not quite hitting, the guys that are the never-ending robotic Ohio State wide receiver core. So those guys could be gone, and if they're gone, that really helps Michigan's chances to win. If they're there, it's obviously going to be a lot tougher. But this is a passing attack that's the best in the nation in EPA per pass. They have good but not great pass protection. So they had a lot of struggles against Texas, a lot of struggles against Penn State, and some struggles against Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at these tackles because one of them is Siereveld, who played guard last year. The other one's a guy who transferred in, and they've been fine. But the Maryland team Michigan just played had a much better Pro Football Focus pass protection grade, and like we don't like their run block grades, but they can tell if someone got pressured, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
they're basically equivalent to Michigan's offensive line in terms of pass protection. Getting up 68 pressures this year, Michigan's giving up 72. Both teams have had virtually the same number of pass attempts. So if I'm looking at this game and I'm like, Derek Moore can get some work done, because I'm pretty sure Derek Moore gets some work done in practice against these tackles, right? They're good but not great. So we're here talking about paths to victory, right? Michigan's a 10-point dog for a reason, but you look at this, and I think that there are some things that Michigan could do that other teams have not been able to do.
Yeah. All right. So I would not categorize them as a pass protection. And Michigan and Ohio State's pass protection on the same, even if they're coming out the same in PFF, because Michigan's is getting the ball out of there faster. A lot more of their passes are RPOs, and they're moving the pocket a whole lot. Ohio State is going to sit in the pocket and try to have a longer pass play. So they're holding up.
That's true.
They're holding up longer. Now, the main difference with this year's Ohio State team, it's still the same Ryan Day offense, where they're trying to get they're going to have different crossing routes, right? They're going to run drive a whole lot. They're going to run multiple levels of guys crossing and throw to the guy who's got leverage, which is usually the guy underneath, because teams have kind of all downloaded how they play, and they all try to do what Michigan does, right? Just make them bleed down the field. So Sayan's got a great because he's an accurate passer, right? He stands tall in there. He gets good protection. I think Sierevald's really good at protection for what he is. The NFL might be a step too far for him. But that's what they do, and that's what they've always done. What's different about this year's team is Max Clare. They went out and got a tight end who's a blocker and a receiver. And they're playing a lot of 12 personnel. They still have some guys who are just blocking tight ends, but they don't throw to them very much. But they'll put those guys out there with Claire, and they run a lot of stuff that uses the fact that they've got multiple tight ends. They cross the line of scrimmage. You can tell that they've looked at what they needed to do against Michigan, and they realized they had to hybridize. And I think that the challenge in this game, it's always going to be the receivers, because I think that they have enough talent to throw it down the field if you give them man-on-man coverage with Zeke Berry and Jair Hill. Other teams have been able to do that too. Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, those are guys you have to double, and I think Michigan's going to play them pretty much. I don't think we're going to play man anyway. The question is, can Michigan play the way that they want to play against two tight ends? And they tried to do it with 5-2 against USC, and they just got absolutely obliterated. They can't do that. So they want to go nickel. Are they going to go big nickel is the question I have. Are they going to maybe go with that weird thing that they were trying with Barham a couple weeks ago against Northwestern? Are they going to try Mason Curtis at the nickel spot? They did that a whole bunch against Maryland. Are they going to try to hybrid back against Max Clare? Or maybe just roll Brandon Hillman down and try to play him and play three safeties that way? But I think that they need an answer to the fact that they have multiple tight ends, that they are using those tight ends in the running game, and they use a lot of RPOs to kind of get them open. They had a big, long pass and run against Rutgers, and I've seen so much of Sagan's, yards after the catch is big with this team, especially since since Carnell Tate's been out. And they've been developing these things over time, where you can tell they practice this against Michigan. This is the offense they want to run against Michigan. A lot of RPOs that kind of read an edge or read a side or read a linebacker who's kind of going one way, and then kind of pushes him against the direction of of those crossing routes. And that's what they want to do, right? Find the crossing routes and just outpace your guy.
Well, despite that, their run game has been kind of mediocre. They're about 60th in EPA per rush. Freshman Bo Jackson, not that Bo Jackson, has emerged into their leading rusher. He's averaging 6.5 yards an attempt, but had some struggles against, Wisconsin and Illinois, so some of the better-ish teams on the schedule. in terms of run defense. I should be very clear about that.
Yeah,
um,
I think they were
so they
4.4
then one thing.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So that's one thing that really jumps out about their schedule is like the rushing defenses they have played have been almost entirely very bad, and their results have been okay. So this does feel like a situation where even though Michigan doesn't have Mason Graham, they don't have Kenneth Grant, that they have enough in their front six that they can play Minter style if they want, and Bo Jackson is going to get some yards, but it's not going to be this thing where you like need to react to their run game. I mean, it's first and foremost, we're playing passing defense.
Yeah, and I think it might make a difference in this game that Michigan has, and they've been building, I've seen this in the UFR, they've been building towards playing their starters more now that we're getting to the end of the season. It was just a mix before, but I think that they're starting, maybe not defensive tackle so much, but I think that you're going to see Benny play more, or at least as much as he can in this game, right? You're going to see as much Derek Moore as you can. You're going to see as much Jayshon Barham as you can. TJ Guy had a great game last year against these guys. I think that you're just, they're obsessed with Cam Brandt, and he's not playing well, but, like, I don't think you're going to get as much Cam Brandt. You didn't get as much Cam Brandt last week. And I don't think you're going to get, like, the freshmen in there and stuff like that. I think that you're going to see Michigan playing their starters. I think Michigan's had a plan for these guys all along. I think part of that plan was getting here, uninjured, right? Just getting Derek Moore here where he's not exhausted and beat up. And the linebacker core is pretty beat up. Ernest Hausman missed last week. But when I look at how they're going to do this, you're not going to do it the way you did last year, right? Graham and Grant are not here to just own the inside. So you need your defensive tackles to not lose, right? And then those linebackers have to be quick on the spot while staying back to pass. Ernest Hausman was amazing at that last year. If they got him back and they get the same game they got from Ernest Hausman, that is how you make up that difference. Jimmy Rolder has been so much better this year than last year. And I think between Moore and Rolder and Hausman and, Sullivan did not have a great week last week, but he's a player, right? Like, if you get some good play out of those guys, I just think that they need to know what their answer is for these two tight ends, because that's been an issue. God, I wrote about it in the preview book this year, right? And you knew that they were going to do it. You knew that they went and got Max Clare for this reason. You watch the Rutgers game, and it's just like practicing, the RPOs and the ways they want to use it. And you can see, like, okay, they did this thing 4 times. The counter is going to be some sort of run, or that the counter of what they were doing against Rutgers is almost so obvious that I wonder if they're setting up the counter to the counter for Michigan. There's always games they play, but that's their game. And I think Bo Jackson, he's a good back. He's a freshman, so he's going to get better. Tony Alford was speaking the world of him because he recruited him there, and that's what they've always had, right? They've had good backs, but their offensive lines are built to pass protect. I think they're good at pass protection, except I always get this name wrong. Tegra Shabola at right guard.
Yeah.
So you can get some pressure inside against that guy, but Hinsman, Montgomery, Daniels, they're all just fine. Derek Moore is going to be has to be a difference maker, and those linebackers have to be difference makers, and that's how I think Michigan's path to stopping their running game without committing too much to the pass. And then the pass is going to be the pass, right? And we've seen this before where in 21 they just threw to the receivers in double coverage and they made plays anyways, and then they've been afraid to do that since then. So that's where the Smith and Tate thing comes in, I think.
All right. Well, let's take a break. Come back, talk about the Ohio State defense.
Oh, God. Since 2001, Underground Printing has been the Ann Arbor original. Starting from a West Quad dorm room and growing into the go-to source for custom apparel and Michigan gear. Whether you're gearing up for game day or creating custom design for your team or business, Underground Printing has you covered. With 3 convenient stores right on campus, getting your hands on high-quality Wolverine gear has never been easier. Visit Underground Printing today, in-store or online at shop.undergroundshirts.com, where Michigan pride meets top-notch service.
Here's the run again. Donovan Edwards. Whoa! Can they catch him? No! Donovan Edwards again, 85 yards. Guys, I'm not Gus. I'm Nick, and I rode the bus to Bursley every day back in '97. There's a ton of advisors out there. All of them have a focus on investments, but not all of them focus on planning like we do here at Peak. And none of them have that MGo blog connection like we do. Get your second opinion at peakwm.com/MGoblog. Retire with peak confidence.
It's the time of year where cracks in your defense get exposed. Good thing the fix is a phone call away. Community Pest Solutions is a lockdown defender for homes and businesses. If you're hearing noises in your walls or attic or dealing with bug problems, it's time to call Community. To schedule an inspection, just Google Community Pest Solutions or hit up their website at pestfreemi.com.
Hey, fellow Michigan fans, this is Matt Demarest, Realtor and Lender. For a decade now, you've heard me on the podcast talk about mortgages, and I've helped hundreds of fellow Michigan fans in that capacity, including Brian and Seth. But many of you don't know I'm a real estate broker as well. I promise to make buying, selling, or financing homes simple and cost-effective anywhere in the state of Michigan. Whether you're upsizing, downsizing, buying a vacation home, or building a real estate investment portfolio, send me a text or give me a call. It's never too early to make a plan, and the call is always free. My number is 734-882-8194. Again, 734-882-8194. Or you can find me online at realtorandlender.com. That's realtorandlender.com. Whether you want to buy, sell, or finance a home, or even all three, I promise to provide the experience so many of you have come to expect over the years. And as always, thank you, and go blue. NMLS 1011726, Equal Housing Lender.
Whether you just lost a tooth on the field, chipped one at a tailgate, or it's just time to get those wisdom teeth out, Radicke Oral Surgery has you covered. Trusted by Celine and Ann Arbor families for 25 years, the Radicke Oral Surgery team treats every patient like family, and they accept most major dental insurance plans. We're going to have a lot of reasons to smile this year, so make sure that thing is ready. So when it's time to replace or remove a tooth, call up the team that always converts. Visit drradicke.com to schedule, drradecki.com.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 11.12. We now turn our attention to the Ohio State defense. The number one unit in the country has not given up more than 16 points in a game, and the few points they do give up are often in garbage time. Yeah. So they've had so much garbage time that sometimes it's a little hard to take the Pro Football Focus overall grades seriously because they're running in a lot of backups. So this year, Alex has had many defenses where he's just like, these guys are just a bunch of guys, and there's no difference between any of the guys, and that's fine. Really average defense. And I felt kind of the same way when I was looking at the Ohio State defense, except they're not just guys. They're all like B-plus players. And there's like a couple of guys who are stars, like, you have Reese and maybe Caden McDonald. But the thing that really jumps out is that in previous years, there have been like pretty obvious holes in the defense that Michigan has been able to attack. And this defense does not seem to have any of those. There are a few players that Pro Football Focus doesn't like, but they're all reserves. And except for Edric Houston, who's a defensive tackle, I bet $1 we don't really see very much of them. So it's not an overwhelming unit, but there's no holes.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say that the Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Arvil Reese, and Caden McDonald stand out. Especially Downs and Reese and McDonald. Styles, we've seen him forever, but they're so talented. You talk about Downs and Styles and Reese, like those guys are, Downs everyone knows, right? We've played that guy 3 times already, 2 times already, and his this year, Matt Patricia is kind of having him move around a lot more, so they're playing a lot of man. They're playing, some Don Brown kind of defense, and just letting Downs rove around and pick things off and play the run, and like he is making the rest of it work because guys can make mistakes and he fixes everything, and he's just always around the ball. I think
one aspect that isn't great is their pass rush. So, when Alex reviewed the Washington game, Damon Williams had a lot of time to throw and just wasn't ready for it. They dropped 8 guys into coverage, something like 20% of the time. So Caden Curry, one of the defensive ends, has a 16% win rate and 88 pass rush grade. That's very good, like B plus, A minus territory. And then they don't really have much else in that department. Reese is probably their second most threatening pass rusher, and he's had 97 blitz snaps, which is a lot. But they tend to drop an end when they send Reese, so it's a lot of 4-man rushes. It's a lot of just sitting back and playing Minter style, I guess, making them drive the field against a bunch of guys that are veterans and just don't make mistakes.
Yeah, I spoke wrong when I said Don Brown because they're playing cover 1, but they're playing it with 4-man pressures. Caden McDonald will eventually break through. There's even if you're doubling that guy, he's not going to stay on the line of scrimmage forever. And he can. That's where they get a lot of pressure. And against Washington, you saw that sometimes he would just split 2 blockers, and all of a sudden Demon Williams just has nowhere to go with the ball. I'm not sure Bryce Underwood is going to be able to kind of read out what they do, because they do kind of complicate things. But most of the time, they're just kind of playing man on the outside, right? And they've got the talent to do that. Jermaine Matthews, David Igbenosian, Jalen McClain, Lorenzo Stiles, all of those guys are highly talented, can move very well, defensive backs. And it's hard. And, Arvil Reese is Arvil Reese. He's, he's their Barham, right? Sometimes he's going to be coming off the edge. They do a lot of 5-1 with him. And also he can cover like a safety. So it's hard to figure out what they're doing and find the spot that you have to throw. And you get some time, but you get time against, what are you going to do? Like they're running man against you. There's going to be a player against your dudes.
Well, the interesting question there is you do have Bryce Underwood. So running man against Bryce Underwood is okay, we're going to leave a spy back and hopefully that works out. But that's kind of if Michigan is able to hold the pocket and Bryce escapes, there's going to be a couple of moments where it's well, can Underwood dodge Stiles or Reese or Caleb Downs in space?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be a really big hinge point, is whether Underwood can actually run the ball, both in design runs and also just on scrambles. So if Michigan can pick up 50 yards in scrambles from Underwood, that's going to go a long way.
Right, yeah. I mean, they spied with Kenyatta Jackson a little bit this year, who is...
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So, they've got some weird responses sometimes, and they can do that because they've got some talent, right? Caden Curry is another one of those dudes that, I think Bryce might just be maybe a step too far for him, but the players they've been going against, they can do that. I don't think that, the one-on-one against Arvil Reese or Caleb Downs, it's possible, but those guys are built for that reason, right?
Well, yeah, and then the style of offense Michigan's running is also very RPO heavy. So I'm sure Ohio State will have watched the Northwestern game and seen what they were able to do. And so this is always going to be a game plan game, right? So I'm looking for that snag route that they keep running to turn into something else. There's going to be some situations where I feel like Michigan's going to make something look like an RPO, but the linemen aren't actually going to be run blocking. They're going to know it's a pass. They're not going to go downfield, and they're going to try to double move some of these guys. So, because they're going to be if Michigan tries that slant or that snag that they've been running all year, come on, Ohio State's going to be prepped for it. So you have to. It's going to be cagey, I think, and Michigan's going to try to break some tendencies Ohio State will, but it's going to be this is going to be a game where I'm going to be very interested to see what Chip Lindsey has, because I think he's done a very good job all year of kind of shepherding a freshman quarterback through, the most difficult portion of his career and giving him reads he can execute. And they have been on the upswing the past couple of weeks after that bye week where they kind of settled him down after Underwood had gotten pretty inaccurate. So I feel like this is going to be Michigan doesn't have to win this game for me to feel pretty good about Chip Lindsey if they're able to come out against this defense and kind of crack them. If they put up 24 points and they lose, that's still a pretty good sign for the future.
Yeah, and Chip Lindsey, that's what he's done. We talk about what his offense does, and he's clever. He has long shots that they mean to hit that look like things they've run all year. And they have, they'll run the same pattern a bunch of times and put it on tape, and then all of a sudden somebody goes in a different direction you weren't expecting him to, and that's where they get those, or at least this is how his North Carolina offense functioned. It's going to be probably snowy and windy and ugly and
Well, the forecast right now is that the snow is going to hold off and it's not going to be that windy. So, there might be some snow late, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So
my question was, and this is kind of where are you at with the offensive line? Can they move? Can they run?
I really don't know. I can't judge it. The one thing I would say is that both those ends are 260. There's not a JT out there. There's not like a 290-pound anchor. They feel like a very good defensive line, but one that isn't physically overwhelming, with the exception of McDonald. That's the guy I'm really worried about.
Yeah.
Because, Crippen's not the most powerful guy in the world, and Garner is a redshirt freshman, and just kind of feels like there's a real possibility that he just dominates the interior so much that Michigan really can't run its stuff very well. And that's you can't put him in the wrong gap very well, right? Because he's just going to be in the backfield, shutting off other gaps. He's the guy I'm really worried about.
Yeah, and I really wish we had Bredesen, because you look at how you would want to attack this team, and they run.
He says he's going to give it a shot, so.
So they put Reese on the edge, right? And they have him come off and if you two tight end them, they kind of want to 5-1 you, and that Michigan's played that way before against really good backs, and they've gotten burned because your edges have to be able to hold up against against tight ends if you do that. So if you ask me how I would take Michigan's offense and what they have right now and play them against this Ohio State defense, I would try to run off the edge. I would try to two tight end them or fullback them and see if you can force them to kind of widen up, because they don't have more guys they can throw at you on that defensive line. They want to play you in nickel.
All right, you got a prediction?
Let's go 21-20 Michigan. I think that there's I think that it's just the whole year's been building up to it. I think Ohio State is a great defense. But Michigan's offense is going to have just enough to kind of put some points on the board, and I think that their offense looks really good, but Michigan's been kind of preparing all year just to do this. Could go south, but I gotta believe, man. That's what I am. That's what I do. 21-20 Michigan.
The vibe that I'm getting is that I don't think either starting wide receiver is going to be full go for Ohio State. It just, you saw a pretty heavy limp from Smith 2 weeks ago, and I just don't think that's something you come back from that quickly. So I kind of feel like Michigan, this is going to be a tight game. It's going to be very defensive. I got 22-18 Ohio State, and I think that, unfortunately, we're going to get some freshman mistakes from Bryce Underwood that cost Michigan the game, because that's the way freshmen work. All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and I guess we should talk about some basketball.
I don't mind that.
This is a tough team right here.
Sometimes people that are standing on third base think they hit a triple, but they didn't.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood, CFP at Peak Wealth Management. At Peak, we have over 25 years of planning and investment experience. We've been through the tough years with bear markets, 2001, 2008, 2020, and 2022. We've navigated these tough years for hundreds of clients to and through retirement. If you're looking for a tough team, check out the CFPs at Peak Wealth. Learn more at peakwm.com/mgoblog today.
This is a tough team right here.
Kick his ass, Seabass! Long Road Distillers ready-to-drink canned cocktails are made for Michigan game days. Our lavender lemonade is crafted with our own vodka, real ingredients, and an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. No corners cut, no shortcuts taken. Distilled and canned in Grand Rapids, it's ready for the tailgate, the stands, or your post-game celebration. So whether you're gearing up for the game, raising a can in victory, or charting for the next UFR, take the long road. Made in Michigan, for Michigan.
Winewood Organics is Ann Arbor's only cannabis microbusiness. It's a place where plants are grown in living soil, where nearly every product is made, mixed, trimmed, and packed by hand, where first-time customers save 25% on everything from old-school hash to live resin carts. You can find them just west of downtown or at winewoodorganics.com. Winewood Organics, a place where the weed is better.
Is your online store sluggish, outdated, underperforming? You may be suffering from chronic crappy website disorder. 1 in 3 online stores built by your brother's friend's nephew currently suffers from chronic crappy website. But now, there's hope. Introducing Human Element. Huel has helped hundreds suffering from CCW to turn their online stores around, creating fast, secure, and engaging online experiences that turn visitors into customers and put products back at the top of their search engine game.
Before Huel, I had abandoned carts, browser errors, and poorly animated GIFs. Now, with Huel, I can focus on what I'm actually good at, running my business.
Jeffrey, would you be a dear and pull the Ferrari around?
Side effects may include increased traffic, customer conversions, better ROI, compliments, elation, and early retirement. Why live with the disappointment of chronic crappy website disorder? Speak to your Human Element consultant today to see if Huel is right for you.
I can't believe I'm doing this. If you find yourself in the penalty box, you want a Michigan man arguing your case, call criminal law attorney and former prosecutor Jonathan Paul tonight. It's 248-924-9458. Or visit his old website at michiganlawgrad.com.
So she can be what you want, but she's not quite what you need. So she can ask you to leave, but she knows you just won't go. I'm sitting on the floor.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 11.12. We now turn our attention to the basketball team, which for the first time ever is number one in KenPom after the most dominating MTE run, I think, in possibly the history of MTEs. A 40-point win over San Diego State, a 30-point win over Auburn, followed by a 40-point win over Gonzaga. That is one of the most shocking basketball games I've ever seen. Just in terms of expectations versus results, Michigan stomped on every single opponent right out of the gate and never let them up. I think Michigan is now assured of being the best defense in the country at the end of the year. They're finally first in 2-point defense after Michigan State got to UNC a little bit yesterday. And Gonzaga entered this game with an incredible record at 2-point shooting. They hit 42%. And this game was so out of hand so fast that I think it was probably significantly worse than that in the brief competitive section of the game. And one of the things that kind of pops out from both box scores is that Michigan gave up some offensive rebounds. They had some turnovers. A lot of that was concentrated in the last few minutes. Like almost half of Michigan's offensive rebounds seeded against Gonzaga were in the last 10 minutes. Like they had 6 turnovers against Auburn before the last 3 minutes. So the issues that they were having earlier in the year, they have addressed. And to me, one of the most important things for Michigan, and not just for this tournament, but going forward this year and for the duration of Dusty May's tenure here, is that they were having real problems when opponents were blitzing ball screens. Mm-hmm. And in this tournament, it looked like they had spent an awful lot of time figuring out what you need to do when opponents blitz ball screens. So you saw a very consistent thing from both Cadeau and LJ Kayson, where they would fake high and then throw a bounce pass to the rolling big. And then at that point, usually the rolling big had a dunk. Sometimes he had to pass it off, and it was a hockey assist kind of situation. But we go from a situation where, Kayson and Cadeau were having major issues Cadeau hadn't had more than one assist in like 4 games. He had 6 turnovers against 1 assist against TCU in a game where Michigan turned the ball over 22 times. In this game, was it 12 or was it 14 assists? No, 13 assists, 2 turnovers. One of those turnovers was an attempted alley-oop to the Axel Lendenborg when we were in just the dunk contest portion of the game. So that one doesn't even count to me. And then Kason had 6 assists and 1 turnover himself. So it's a really good sign that Dusty May was able to identify something that was bothering Michigan, coaches his kids up to defeat it, and then have that pay off in such a spectacular fashion. Because in all 3 of these games, teams were like, we got to blitz these ball screens because otherwise we're going to be in trouble. And it backfired immensely. So they're going to have to back off. And now they're varying their coverages now, but they're going to have to hedge. And so they play some drop coverage and let Cadeau kind of do some Cadeau things that opponents were clearly afraid that was going to happen. And they were trying to prevent Cadeau from getting downhill and throwing up alley-oops to any of Michigan's huge guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put into context the level of dominance here because no team has ever made it to the Elite 8 by outscoring their first 3 opponents by 110 points, which is basically, opponent-wise, what they just did, right? So and the reason why that never happens is, like you said, there's a week between in that situation, right? You play 2 games, and everyone gets to look at what you've done. And the preparation for this tournament, I think, you don't have there's a lot of teams to prepare for. Gonzaga can't, guess Michigan is going to be the team that they're going to play. But they probably have some sort of scouting report, and that scouting report says, blitz them. And that's what SDSU comes in doing. So it's hard to change up your strategy. But I think that the strategy is going to get changed up now that they've got 10 days to prepare for them. And I don't know if you've got a guess, but my guess is they're just going to, tell Cadeau to go shoot, right, and hope that they have that Michigan has bad 3-point luck.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next thing you're going to see is that they're going to go under screens against Cadeau and sort of dare him to shoot off the dribble. They mentioned this during the broadcast. It was brought up in the preseason is that Cadeau's numbers from 3 were actually very good when he was a standstill shooter. It's just when he was pulling up off the dribble, that was the reason that his numbers weren't so good the first couple of years. And now that he's been more of a standstill shooter, he's at 37% this year. Sorry. And you're just seeing a lot of depth with this team. And, we always thought, early in the season, that once Michigan kind of figured it out defensively, that they had the physical ability to be dominant. And that is clearly the case here. And, everybody talks about Ade Mara, who's a huge part of it, but also Morez Johnson was the main defender on Graham Ike, a guy who last year shot 63% against Tier A KenPom opponents. That's top 50 KenPom opponents in 13 games. That's not a fluke. He has a bagel from the floor in this game. He's 0-9. They let him shoot some threes, which he's capable of doing, but he doesn't do it very much. And then he just had nothing on the interior. And that's a 6'9" guy. He's a below the rim player. Started off with Wyoming for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. But super skilled and a very tough out. And Michigan just fed him his teeth, basically.
Yeah, and this was, strangely, just because our lines got crossed, and we both ended up writing previews of Gonzaga, and both kind of came up with the same story. That Ike is a below the rim big who needs to get his back to the basket and get isolated, and that's how he gets his points. He's got a lot of moves, and then he plays off of Brandon Huff, who's got that 2-point push shot, which you saw a whole bunch, right? That was their most effective offense. Yeah, and that's what they had to do. And if you look at all the highlights from this tournament, almost every single basket you see the other team making is a pull-up. It's a big making a 3, or it's a big making a 2-point jumper. And if you play shot quality against this team and they're not turning it over, you're dead. And the fact that they can't get to the rim, and Morez is a part of that, but even when Mara's not on the court, Axel Lendenborg was kind of always on his back too. So any team that has to score at the rim is dead. And any team that's going to play 2-point jumpers against Michigan is just going to lose shot quality.
Yeah, the craziest number from this game is that Gonzaga was 8 of 22 at the rim, and Michigan shot better than that from 3.
Right.
That's a good way to win a basketball game.
I want to make a point about this because, people looked at this and they looked at the box score and they go, oh, Gonzaga shot 3 of 22 from 3, like 3-point luck game. You mentioned that, if you reverse the 3-point luck in this game, Michigan still wins by 13. I think it's...
Well, no, if you just drop out, they won by 40 and they had a 30-point edge from 3. Well, okay, you still win by 10.
Right. But the thing is, if you look at who's taking their shots, now, late they had their just a shooter take 4 of them. But in this game...
Well, hey, we gotta praise Leonard Grady. You know what? Yeah. You come in a game, there's 7 minutes left in the game, and you get up 5 threes. I mean, you only hit 1, but yeah. I know what Leonard Grady is going to be. He's going to be a fearless shooter once there's time for him to be on the floor.
Well, I'm not talking about Leonard Grady, though. I'm talking about their guy, Steele Venters, comes in and adds another 4 misses, I think, in this box score to 3 of 22. But if you look at the rest of the guys taking shots, they're not shooters. They got their center, Braden Huff, taking three 3-pointers. Ike took 4 of them, right? And so those guys are going to.
That's true.
Saint Superi is an okay shooter, but most of the guys taking their shots are guys who were 17% or something like that this year and 25% career. Those are not shooters.
That's true.
Yeah.
Foster was 23% last year.
Mm-hmm.
Huff was 28%. So that's a pretty good point. Michigan's funneling shots to guys that aren't particularly threatening. Now, Superi is Spanish, though, so that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And Venters are good shooters, but that's only 7 of their 22 attempts, and the rest of them were not particularly good. So, just to turn the page back to the Auburn game.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what? Let's take a break, and then we'll turn the page back to the Auburn game.
I'm fine with that.
The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking of the incredible breakthrough made possible by developments in communications.
Arthur C. Clarke's 1964 vision is now reality with SignalWire, a cloud platform that enables developers to build the applications that will reshape the future of communications.
These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other wherever we may be.
You can add cutting-edge, real-time video and audio to any product, website, or application with APIs and SDKs for developers of all skill sets. SignalWire is optimized for high quality and low latency communication functionality for video, voice, and text messaging capabilities.
Almost any skill could be made independent of distance. Men will no longer commute. They will communicate.
See for yourself at signalwire.com. Use code 2021 and receive $25 in developer credit. Go to signalwire.com.
SignalWire Communications OGs, original geeks of programmable communication.
Hi, it's Pete with Sharon's Heating and Air Conditioning. We've been serving Metro Detroit and Ann Arbor since 1981, and we've proudly stepped into the 21st century with an online store. Visit our website where you can order replacement air filters and subscribe to auto delivery, indoor air quality installation services like whole home humidifiers and UV light air purifiers, and get instant quotes on HVAC system replacements and water heaters. We pride ourselves on being upfront and transparent with our pricing. So if you have a furnace that's performing like James Franklin, give us a call or book an appointment at sharonsheating.com.
In southeastern Michigan, the yearly cost for a nursing home averages approximately $100,000. It doesn't have to, though. Reed McCarthy founded Ann Arbor Elder Law after handling a tricky situation for his own family. Years of experience later, his boutique firm works with clients across southeast Michigan, dealing with Medicaid planning, long-term care, and tax, disability, and family law, not to mention family dynamics. If you have a family member who may need that level of care, or if you're ready to start your own estate plan, Reed can give you a plan for the future. Visit AnnArborElderLaw.com or call 734-945-9693. That's 734-945-9693.
Need help with insurance? Well, longtime MGoBlog supporter Owen Rosen is back at his new insurance brokerage, Royal Oath Insurance Group. Owen might not be the knowledge, but he and his team have the life, business, car, and home insurance knowledge you need. Based in Michigan, but they can also help in other states too, you can call or text Owen today at 586-229-1026 or visit Royal Oath, that's OATH, insurance.com. Since 2001, Underground Printing has been the Ann Arbor original. Starting from a West Quad dorm room and growing into the go-to source for custom apparel and Michigan gear. Whether you're gearing up for game day or creating custom design for your team or business, Underground Printing has you covered. With 3 convenient stores right on campus, getting your hands on high-quality Wolverine gear has never been easier. Visit Underground Printing today, in-store or online at shop.undergroundshirts.com, where Michigan pride meets top-notch service.
Be another late night for me. Can't stay up all night, but I can't sleep. Can't find another late night party, so I'll stay up all night and I'll watch TV. Rewind, 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 rewind.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 11.12. We are still talking about Michigan basketball after their stunningly successful Players Era Championship tournament. Who was the music by there, Seth?
That was Sunday the Band. That's the kid of the guy who happily drove us out. We were leaving the Rose Bowl and couldn't get out of there, and he opened his car to us and let us, and drove us on out of there and got us out of. And we were listening to his then, I think, 14-year-old son's band, and now they've kind of blown up in Pasadena. So it takes me back to the Rose Bowl. That was those are good times. Also,
always a good place to go. So yeah. Michigan beats Auburn by 30, and of course the most notable stat from that was 9 turnovers for the whole game, 3 of which came in the last 3 minutes. So 6 turnovers until walk-ons and other guys' time. So an incredible turnaround from earlier in the year. And I want to shout out Roddy Gale, who was pretty efficient in this game, 17 points, 3 of 6 from 3, which is but I'm not going to rely on that. The thing about Gale is he comes in and he provides a calming presence now. He's a senior. He's really leveled up his 2-point shooting, which I think is more important for him than his 3-point shooting, really, because he's going to be taking a lot more 2s. And I think this is, excuse me, it's kind of a rising tide lifts all boats situation because, Gale is not the first option or the fourth option. I mean, the team is getting an incredibly balanced amount of scoring, so I don't think anyone has more than 22% of Michigan shots. So he's in a situation where he can attack if he wants to, and when he does get an advantage on someone, he's excellent at putting the guy on his back and just finishing through him physically. So, he was kind of up and down last year. People were calling him a plant, that kind of stuff. But his final year of college basketball, probably, he's making those proverbial winning plays, grabbing offensive rebounds, playing defense, just generally maturing. He plays a mature game now.
He does. And, there was a point in this game where there's they're inbounding the ball. Michigan is starting to give it back, right? And all of a sudden it's a game again. And they bring him in. He scores down low on a burly, one of those plays where he just gets to the rim and makes it happen. And then he steals the inbound pass and scores again. And that was just sorry, Auburn, it's not happening for you. There's another time I think it was this game where he just went coast to coast as soon as he comes in. And they're so focused on the bigs that he's that extra piece, right? Where you think this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and then all of a sudden he's going to hit a 3, which I don't want to jiggle the thing. But
don't spook it.
Yeah.
The other notable development in this game is that Cadeau had foul trouble, so LJ Cason plays 25 minutes. 10 points on 6 shooting possessions, an offensive rebound, 3 steals, a couple turnovers, and a couple of assists. I can't remember why, but I thought that one of the turnovers was mitigated by something or another. But that's a real steady shift from a guy who has not been particularly consistent. Michigan's defense didn't go off a cliff when he was in there. he's had some mental lapses from time to time this year. But if you look at his on-off splits, which we were very concerned about a year ago, because they were terrible, they were awful.
Oh, we had Matt D
now,
like screaming about him in our Slack chat because it's a
but like he's made a lot of progress, and now those on-off splits are pretty even. So like when Cadeau comes on the floor, Michigan is about as good as when he's not on the floor, and that's a big step forward for a guy who was still feeling his way last year. And then you have Lendenborg put up. He's been the KenPom MVP of 4 of Michigan's last 5 games, and he's doing it by putting up 15, 16, 17 points efficiently and just filling up the box score. So 2 steals and a block, 4 assists, an offensive rebound, like all the stuff you wanted Yaxel Lendenborg to do, to fill up the stat sheet, to not be ball dominant in the way that he had to be at UAB, to be like just a really efficient team player. Like he feels like he's doing exactly that. Like sort of the things I was talking about Roddy Gale doing, Lendenborg is doing, but he's also uncorking like these drives where he's just absolutely owning Filip Jovic, who's like 21 or something, because he's a Serbian refugee, not a refugee. No, never mind. So he just occasionally shows you that he does have this wild talent. And, I'm looking at an NBA draft, mock draft for next year. He's mocked to go like 18th. And the enormous difference between having like a Caleb Houston or a Jet Howard, who are lottery picks, but they're freshman lottery picks, and then a 5th-year college player who is also kind of just barely outside the lottery, it's just miles different. So just an incredible ad. Like, I think everybody was bracing to lose him to the NBA and probably could have, but for Lendenborg to come back, says great things about Dusty May and like how people want to play for him. Obviously, he's getting a fair bit of coin to do so as well. So, the NIL era looks like it's going to be a big win for Michigan generally. Before we finish, a couple of brief things looking forward. One, I saw this on the Blue Skies, is that Michigan's almost certainly going to be number 1 in KenPom at the end of November. And Will Warren took a look at the average outcome for those teams. All but 4 of them were 1 seeds. And it's about a coin flip to get to the Final Four. So, like, even though it's early in the season, Michigan establishing themselves over the course of these 3 games, I think it means that the basketball team we were all hoping for has arrived, and this is what it's going to be the rest of the season. And then the other thing is that the Big Ten looks brutal.
Yeah, well.
So, like, before the season, there were a bunch of teams in like the 30s and 40s, and I was like, well, is anyone really good except for these couple of teams? Michigan is 1, Purdue's 2, Illinois is 13. They're probably going to move down because they're getting hammered by UConn right now. Michigan State's exceeded expectations. They're 15th. Wisconsin 20th. Indiana 21st. Iowa 22nd. USC 28. Ohio State 31. UCLA 34. Nebraska 40. Washington 46. Northwestern 52. And then you have like 5 teams that are bad. So, like, this is going to be quite the battle for the conference title, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple points about Yaxel real quick, just especially in that Auburn game where you lose Mara,
sure.
And then he was not. The reason why he didn't go to the NBA is he's not. He was supposed to be not on Wolf's level as a defender. Well, he was in this game, and I think that's that's not something we're that surprised by. But Yaxel has been such a great presence on defense this year that that. They're so good on defense because they're so good at 2-point defense, and that's what travels, right? 3-point defense can go back and forth. So, hell of a great pickup. Bruce Pearl was on the call on this game and complaining that Michigan, that they offered him, and he was like, not even going to talk about your kind of money. And I love this era. I love that Michigan is like, yeah, we're going to buy the best player in the country, and he's going to be the best player in the country.
Okay.
All right.
Esa rosca, like a single drop. He hates la ruska, vodka. There's poison in his sweat.